Hi there, welcome to Economics Explained. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you how the unemployment rate is calculated, and then explain a couple of issues with it. The unemployment rate is calculated by a government agency called the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They start by taking the whole US population, which is represented by this circle here, and then subtract from it a number of people. For example, they subtract everybody who's under the age of 16, because obviously children aren't available to take jobs. They also subtract everybody who's serving in the armed forces, because people who are in the Army or Navy, well, they're not available to take private sector jobs. And then they subtract everybody who's institutionalized. Well, what does that mean? A big chunk of that population, the institutional population, are people who are in jail. But it also includes people who are in old folks' homes or mental sanitariums. What's left is what's called the non-institutional civilian population. That gives the Bureau an estimate of all the people who could potentially work. This group is then further subdivided into two groups. The civilian labor force, we'll get back to that one in a moment, and then those people who are not in the labor force. Those are people who don't have jobs, but that's all right because they also don't want jobs. For example, those are stay-at-home parents or people who are retired. They don't count towards unemployment either. All right, so let's get back to the civilian labor force. That's divided into two groups again. People who are employed, those are people who have jobs, and that's great for them because they also want jobs. And then here's the star of the show, the people who are unemployed. Those are people who don't have jobs, but they want jobs. They're people who are actively looking for work. To calculate the unemployment rate, all we do is we divide the people who are unemployed by the total civilian labor force, and then multiply that by 100. That gives us a percentage. Currently, the percentage of people who are unemployed is 5.5. There are a couple of issues with calculating the unemployment rate that way. The biggest one is that to be unemployed, you must actively be looking for work. What that means is that if you stop looking for work, you're removed from the labor force. It has the effect of taking people who are in the unemployed category here and then moving them into the not in labor force category. Thereby, it probably depresses the population, makes it smaller, the population who's actually unemployed. Another major issue with it is that it doesn't include people who are underemployed. For example, people who are working part-time, but they would rather be working full-time jobs. They're not included. It also doesn't include people who have high qualifications but are trapped in low-skilled, low-paying jobs. For example, somebody who has a master's degree or a PhD, but they're stuck working at Starbucks because there's no work in their field. As a result, the unemployment rate is probably quite a bit higher than what the government is telling us. So to wrap up, how many people are in each of these categories? Well, the institutional population, those are the people who are in the military or children or in jail or care facilities, there's about 70 million of them. There's about 94 million people who are not included in the labor force. There's about 149 million people who are employed. And finally, there's about 8.2 million people who are unemployed. Again, that could be quite a bit higher. It all depends on how you calculate it. Thanks for watching this episode of Economics Explained. I hope the information presented in this video was helpful for you, and if it was, like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe. You could even leave me a tip in the tip jar. Have a good one. See you next time.